Right. Well, let's start with this one. And what I'd like you to do is just take a minute to review the following information. Again, for those of you in the audience, what I've done is I have provided a data sheet that contains trend information on enrollment by age, gender, and service area counties, awards confirmed by gender and race, GEDs obtained, adult education, and other information typical of Shelton State Community College. And I've asked Mr. Givhan if he would just take a few moments to review that information, and then I would ask you to respond in two ways. One is, talk to me a little bit about what you glean from this information, and two, in developing a vision and a strategic plan for the college, what additional information would you look for, and what would be your approach in reviewing and interpreting these data? Okay?
Thank you. As you look at the data, I think one thing's apparent, the economic hard times that we experienced 2008, 2009 in that time frame, inevitably we're going to cause somewhat of a spike in population, I think, with community colleges. People who may be between jobs or without a job naturally would seek some sort of education at that time, and community college would benefit from that. So it's not so much that, you know, the kind of arc that you see in terms of in a little bit of a downward trend there is terribly concerning. What I would want to know, though, as I got in, and there's always, you know, data always sort of demands another question. And so I thrive on dialogue, and I'd want to get my team together and talk about, okay, we've got the data, these are what the numbers are telling us, but what's behind the numbers? Do we have survey data that we would get from students who would tell us, you know, if we didn't retain the student, why didn't we retain the student, that sort of thing. I think you've always got to be, and I'm eager to get my hands on as much data. Anecdotal data, although, you know, it's not always, you have to take it as that, it's anecdotal. At the same time, there can be something there that I always find causes me to look at something else, and so then for what the anecdotal data that maybe I get some from the surveys, then I want to go back and I want to ask again, okay, is this true, or is this this gives me concern? Is there something that we need to worry about here? As I look at the counties, this is kind of a snapshot in time, and I'd love to see more about the service area. What have we seen from the service area over time? Do we need to go out to some of these places if we've seen a decline? And I'm kind of sensitive to this because I'm from a rural part of this, just in Dallas County, and a lot of these counties, I know the kind of shape they're in, and I really think it's important for us to make sure that we're going out to the service areas and understanding their needs as well. Retention is absolutely something that we've got to, and I'm happy to see that we're at a higher retention rate, but my question would be, I'd like to see even more what those retention rates are, and can we go a little bit further back? And especially now with the idea of we're beyond access, we're beyond success, we're really looking for completion now. And so retention is absolutely critical. And again, I want to get back to survey data. Why aren't we retaining people if we aren't? And are we at historical levels? And then here's the other thing is, where do we need to be? What are the kind of goals that we're trying to achieve here? And as I look at the degrees, again, glad to see certificates increase, glad to see Associates of Applied Science, other increases. But again, what we don't have here is what are our goals? Are we short of our goals? This is trend information, but how are we compared against our goals? We need to measure ourselves against that. Again, on the ethnicity, similar here, I need to understand more. I've got our ethnicity here, gender and ethnicity, but I want to compare that against what our service area is and understand whether we're reflecting the population that we serve here in the community college. And the strategic plan would be exactly that, to make this accessible, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community that we serve and that we're aware and we reflect that community in what we're doing and fulfilling our role.
Good, great, thank you. Okay, no doubt you're aware that there are a number of presidencies open in our state and many, many more open across the country. It's just kind of where we are in our history. Talk to me a little bit about why Shelton State and why you believe you're the right person to lead this institution.
Thank you. When I saw that Shelton State was open, I got a big smile because it seemed like everything was coming together for me. I served 33 years. I served my country for 33 years in the Air Force, and lately that really education and training, higher education and training has been one of the predominant ways I've served. And my wife and I, both from Alabama, wanted to get back to Alabama, had long and hard talked about what opportunities were out there and how we wanted to make a difference, coming back and after serving our country, serving our state. And one of the top things for us was looking for that higher education opportunity, but not just a higher education opportunity. We want to come back and make a difference in Alabama. We're excited about a lot of the progress that Alabama is making. It's my home. It's something that I care deeply about, and even as far away as I've been, I've always come back and thought, and I see something about Alabama, or I'm keeping up. I'm following things. So to have a chance to come back, to have a chance to serve the state, and then to see Shelton State, a place that I have a background with in terms of this area, with having relatives here in Tuscaloosa, my father having been a banker here, come up here to cheer on the Crimson Tide throughout my life. Having a connection to the Black Belt, as I mentioned earlier, which is something that is my home. That's where I'm from, and some of the service area here. This chance both to participate in an incredible economic opportunity at this point in the state's life with this corridor between Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, the industry that's coming here, the educational institutions, a chance to partner with the University of Alabama, with Stillman College right here, and a chance to make a difference in people's lives at a point that it is absolutely needed. Not just obviously nationwide with looking for us for 5 million more degrees that we're expected in the community college sector to provide, but in Alabama, where Accelerate Alabama is looking to make up that 790,000 workforce that we'll see by 2020, that we're going to need skilled workers in, and a lot of those skilled workers are going to be right in this area. So to have a chance to come here to a place I love and I have a great affection for, and to serve my state and to serve this community and region, doing the kind of thing that needs to be done, and it is right in the center of where we are at an important moment in our state's history. I just can't think of a better opportunity.
Good, thank you. As president, you learn that one of your deans has a side accounting and bookkeeping services business, and that the dean has been using college business office personnel to perform the services for his personal business during the college workday. And that's occurring from the business office. In addition, that individual is also using college equipment. The dean has a grandson of Foundation Board member Johnson who makes sizable scholarship donations. You further learn that the business office employs both tenured and non-tenured, have assisted the dean out of fear of retaliation if they don't help. As you are considering how to address this situation, you receive a call from Foundation Board Member Johnson. During the discussion, the board member states that a well-respected business is interested in donating to the newly established Dual Enrollment Scholarship Fund and directing scholarships to the college, and would really appreciate your naming the new softball field after her father. How would you respond to this matter?
This is something that you often run into when you're in positions of leadership, public leadership, these potential conflicts of interest. Let me say first that you have to run things ethically and with integrity, and that has to be a priority. And nothing here would take priority over doing things the right way. At the same time, you're dealing with human beings and relationships, and important. And this is why I would have to say, too, that part of this, although it doesn't necessarily change the action, but it can help in the way the action is received, is that with these sort of a web of relationships that you have here, it's important to have built trust and understanding with people right up front. So that when you have a situation like this, that is obviously going to be a difficult one to handle, it's going to be painful to the people involved potentially. You want to have built that trust and understanding ahead of time with members of the board, so that when you have to come finally that day with bad news or news that is unpalatable perhaps to them, that they understand where you're coming from, and that what you are doing is consistent with everything that you have talked to them about and the way you run things. Similarly, that sort of thing has to be said up front to the staff and the faculty, so that there is no confusion that this sort of thing is not right, and is that it can't be done, and that something will be done about it. Handling the matter is going to be delicate. It has to be done according to the rules, but it's not to say that one jumps to public humiliation of any individual. The important thing is that it has to stop right now. And then you're going to have to do an investigation of some sort to understand exactly what's been happening and the extent of it. That needs to be done as quietly as possible until the facts are determined. All particular regulations, rules, labor rules, things like that need to be observed during the course of this. To the extent that you can, you have to handle things, and I would handle things separately. I'm not, until I know exactly what the facts are, going to be spoiling what may be a perfectly legitimate donation, a perfectly legitimate request. And so I have to proceed, again, delicately on that with respect for the individuals involved, but with a clear focus on what is the right thing to do here and how we navigate this as an institution, so that we don't alienate important supporters, but we still take care of our people and we do the right thing.
Very good. I mean, just a quick follow-up,
Yes.
and you probably already addressed it, but let's assume your first week when you walk in, you're faced with this, so the relationships haven't been addressed. How would you handle it?
Well, then it's going to take even more of an outreach effort on my part. Because now I'm faced, unfortunately, with having to build a relationship at the same time that I may have some bad news. So this has to be a priority. I can't push this to the side. I have to really focus on this and invest my time in it and understanding it and reaching out to the people involved, so that I make sure that we don't end up in a worse place than we need to be as a result of dealing with this.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Could you tell me how many accreditation self-studies you've chaired, and on how many visiting teams have you served?
I have worked with 2 accrediting agencies in my higher education experience. I haven't, I was actually leading the Air Force Institute of Technology, which we are accredited by North Central and the Higher Learning Commission, when we had our accreditation there. So although I was not leading I was leading the self-study as the leader of the institution, I was not chairing it as the faculty member. we had a good visit with them, and let me just talk about a little bit of that, because I'd like to use this as an opportunity to talk about the way I deal with accrediting. Now, SACS I've dealt with as the vice commander or vice president of Air University, and let me just talk about that. I haven't actually served on a visiting team, but I think it's worthwhile to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about my experience. One is that accreditation is absolutely important. I mean, this is our value. This is the thing that we can point to and say, we can do our mission. It's absolutely critical. Communication, I found, was so important to this. And because we were in the Air Force, we had that much more of a burden, because things because it was a uniformed faculty for the most part, and that we were doing things, sometimes classified research. We had to be very careful about how we went about this, and our programs were particularly suited to meet our needs and the Department of Defense's needs. So communication throughout this of what we were doing, how we were doing it, and then especially when I was at Air University, substantial online master's program that we launched. And again, bringing SACS in early on and making them part of this. Again, building those relationships, communicating about what we're doing so that they understand it, and they're providing input early on to what we're doing, so that we don't go down a path and suddenly I find ourselves at loggerheads and potentially jeopardizing our accreditation. So those are the two big experiences I've had in working with two different accrediting bodies.
Okay, good. So you would say you haven't chaired or served on a visiting team, but you've worked with institutions that have gone through SACS accreditation or one of the other regionals?
Actually leading the Air Force Institute of Technology, going through an accreditation, and then at Air University working with SACS on accreditation issues.
Very good, thank you. Okay, this is the next one. One of your top administrators comes to you with a recommendation for the termination of one of his subordinates. This person holds a key staff position, and based on job performance, which dates back many, many years, this recommendation comes to you. Around the same time, you're approached by a rather vocal member of the state legislature who tells you that she has received numerous complaints from constituents about a tenured member of the college's industrial maintenance faculty. The legislature tells you she believes you should terminate that instructor immediately. In reviewing these two employees' written performance evaluations, you note that they have all received satisfactory or slightly better evaluations, even though you've been told that both actually are performing at a substandard level. On further inquiry to the college's HR director, you learn that less than candid performance evaluations have been the norm at the college for years. So what are the issues you see here, and what would your next steps be?
Several issues here. Unfortunately, a culture has developed where the evaluation system is not matching what the performance is that it's designed to evaluate. So the system is broken. I have a broken system. Now, it may be that the steps in the system are perfectly fine, but the way the system is being administered at a minimum is not fulfilling its role, and it's not helping the college. So I've actually run into situations like this several times during my experience, where I would come in and see that an evaluation system, that a person is being passed on in some ways. At the same time, that relieves, the system is what it is, and if we've not used it correctly, we have to start using it correctly. So I see a problem of addressing the culture in which we are not being candid and accurate in the performance feedback that we are providing through the evaluation system, and that is wrong. That needs to be addressed, and we need to review how we are doing this, and if remedial sessions that we have to do for all supervisors to understand what we should do there. None of this relieves us of the fact that we still have to deal with the system that we have. And if they were evaluated and the evaluations were not contested or overturned, then that's the evaluation. And we're at a point where we have to proceed from there. So I have to document performance. So we can go forward and document performance. And then from that point proceed to an assessment of the individual according to the rules of the system. But we can't just suddenly decide these were not good assessments and we're going to act because we had some anecdotal information that says they weren't good assessments. Now, dealing with people, I've got two situations that now I have to deal with. I have to deal with a disgruntled faculty member who may perfectly well be justified. Again, I have to explain, I understand the effect that this may be having, what can we do to perhaps deal with that. However, in the meantime, we've got to document. And so we have to have a path forward for accurate documentation if there are problems that we can assess. Now, the legislator, again, I would hope that I would have built, and if I come to Shelton State, you can be sure that'll be a first priority is building these kind of relationships with all of our elected officials that they understand the situation that I'm in, that I can explain where we are, and that I hear what they're saying, but I have to work within the system, and then as I know that they would want due process to any individual they represent, and that we have to do this. At the same time, I'd want to make sure too, now I'm concerned, what are the other things I'm not seeing? These are 2 data points. Are there others out there? Again, is this symptomatic of a culture that's developed here? And that's a more deeply rooted underlying problem that's going to take some time to deal with.
Okay, good. Very good. Thank you. During your first cabinet meeting as president, the college's workforce development dean informs you that a regional sheet metal production company has decided to relocate its primary production facility to the college's service area, and that as a part of the incentive package offered by the state's economic development team, the college must deliver technical training to the company's existing employees and provide a pipeline of 10 to 15 new sheet metal operators each year over the course of the next 5 years. Complicating matters, the CFO was unaware of this commitment, and thus the college's budget does not account for the necessary increase in personnel and related costs in the college's technical division. What would your thought processes be in analyzing these matters, and how would you address them?
Yeah, wow, what a great opportunity. First of all, that's what I think, and so I get passionate about these. This is exactly the kind of thing that I know mechatronics that we're already doing here at Shelton State, and what a great opportunity that is. I would not want to let that opportunity pass for what is obviously a problem in terms of the college's budget for right now. Rather, I'd want to seize the opportunity and see, meet with my team right off the bat. What is it going to take to deliver on this? This is important. This is one of the things that we exist for as an institution. This is one of the things that that we need to do as part of Accelerate Alabama, our strategic development program, and especially the workforce part. This is too important for us just to let it pass because it's not within our budget. So we have to reach out to the company itself. How can you help us? We want to be your trainer. Please put us in. Let us do this. We'd love to have a public-private partnership. We're probably going to need some help initially from you until we get this incorporated to the degree we can in our budget. What are alternate sources besides the company? No doubt the community, the region, they want this company here. The state wants this company here. So everybody's going to be working together to make this happen. I think there's going to be a lot of momentum, big impetus to make this work. So I think I'll be able to go out to the community and say, we've got a short-term shortfall in what we need in terms of economic resources to make this happen. We're ready to do this. My team has come up with a plan, working with the company to do it. This is what I need from you, and I need your help. And I really think they'd be responsive because, again, what an exciting opportunity, what a great economic development for the area.
Right. Very good. Thank you. As a new president, you will likely be approached by a number of well-meaning individuals offering advice and their perspectives on the college, its history, and its future. Those perspectives will likely conflict with one another. Some will offer with the best of intentions, others will offer in furtherance of their own personal agendas. As you move forward, how will you sift through and manage the various suggestions you receive and ultimately make decisions in the best interest of this college?
I studied history, and I've studied history for a long time. I'm a big student of history. And one of the things in history that you are always concerned with is evaluating sources. Is this a primary source? Was the person actually there? Is this secondary? Is it something that they heard about? How many secondhand, third-hand is it? Is it apocryphal? Did it actually happen? So I always approach things with that kind of a training in mind that I want to gather these perspectives. I want to be able to evaluate them. I have to do that discreetly. I don't want to go over and somebody, well, I heard so-and-so say, but you bring people out and get them to tell. I love history. That's one of the things as I was reading about Shelton State, as I was even hungry for more of, is the history and the development. And you look at the presidents and you think, what was this particular person doing? What were the challenges that they were having? It's important to understand that because as I've done dealing with, for example, in Afghanistan, when I was rebuilding the Afghan Air Force, before I ever went to Afghanistan, I spent months studying the history of that country, getting every book I could get my hands on. I learned the language, or at least one of the official languages of Afghanistan. I just plunged myself into it. Similarly here, I think you cannot just take one person's perspective or opinion. You really have to get others. Again, you have to be careful as you evaluate them. I'm fortunate in that I've maintained a lot of contacts in the community and in the state. And I've already reached out to many of them as I've prepared to come here to Shelton State and gotten their perspective. But again, it's you have to try to understand what the history really is and then make your way through that. And I think that's important to, the plan and the engagement and everything really in the institution is understanding that history and understanding context as you're doing things.
And just a quick follow-up, and you probably touched on this already, but as you might expect, a few may be rather pushy in terms of trying to convince you that they understand the culture and the future, and they ought to be sort of the center of your universe. So how do you address that?
Well, I like to think that, first of all, that when engaging with people, I try to focus on them and make them the center for a moment of my universe so that they understand that I am listening, I hear what they say, I repeat that back to them, that I try to, but that we make this a conversation. That we talk about this and that maybe through my own probing and asking more questions, gently of course, that we can come to more understanding. And actually when I've done this before in some situations, you actually find that the person starts backing off or the person goes, well. And part of it was just they needed to express themselves to you. They needed to tell you what has kind of been stirring up in them and building. And it's good for them to have an opportunity to do that.
Good. Very good. Thank you. The college's service area encompasses a vast geographic area with multiple needs. For instance, the college is located in the same city as the University of Alabama, as you know, a major transfer institution. At the same time, the college services neighboring counties with triple threat conditions: high poverty, high unemployment, and large numbers of adults without high school diploma. Share with us your strategy for leading the college to respond to all of these needs.
Well, this really hits home because, as I mentioned earlier, in the service area, I know the service area, and I've traveled it, grew up in it, and I've seen the kind of conditions that you describe here, and it breaks my heart in many cases to see it. And one of the things that I really have, like I said, when I talk about coming back here to this is the chance to make a difference in these particular areas and address these problems. One of the things I loved about the Air Force, and one of the reasons I joined it, is it was a place where if you were good, if you could succeed on your merit. Didn't matter what background you were from, what education, or I mean education obviously we wanted, but what gender, what race, whatever. What religion, you were coming in, you were given a chance to prove yourself, and then we were going to bring that diverse group together as a team and accomplish great things. And it was so rewarding for me to participate in that. We need to do the same thing here in Alabama, and we've made progress, but it's not enough. We've got to, and so part of what I see my mission is really going out to that service area and making those appeals. I need the help of the officials, the educators, the leaders in those communities. I need to know how to help and how to bring them in. And that's one of the things that really appeals to me about Shelton State and the community college mission in general, is the chance to make a difference in people's lives, people who really need it. I'm sure it's great. I know it's great to be at a nice private institution somewhere where you're getting great students and people and you've got a lot of resources. But this is what's really going to make a difference in people's lives, and to see the pulling up, and this is why it's going to take, and in my ideal vision, is increasing or striving towards seamlessness. The reaching down into the high schools with dual enrollment programs, reaching out into the community, into the workforce, into the economy, reaching into the service sector, into the government sector, all of these, and making the community college, Shelton in this particular case, a commons that people flow in and out of. It's not just a one pathway that we bring them through, that we've got multiple pathways. But particularly here, how do we get out there and bring those people in and do what is our duty to that service area to help?
Very good. Thank you. The college's student services dean informs you that a local K-12 superintendent has told her that local school systems are being indirectly discouraged from endorsing programs to students and their parents associated with Shelton State in this case. What is your next step?
Well, this really concerns me. It's obviously something that would be important that I would want to address personally. So I really would need to talk directly to that person to understand exactly what the concern is and what are we talking about? How is this? How are they being discouraged? And indirectly discouraged. That's sort of an interesting description of it. And why would that be? I think it'd be dangerous just to react as one might want to completely negatively and just say, how could they do that? We've got to stop that. Yeah, I'm very concerned. But why is that? Or is it because if they are being discouraged, is it because someone is saying, look, 2 or 3 of our students participated in this program and it didn't work for them, or they weren't able to get what they hoped to get out of it, or a result? So, maybe it's stemming from something like that. So the root cause analysis is absolutely important here to understand what's causing that. The other thing that I think, and this is something that I'm passionate about, is getting out and communicating to the community and making myself accessible to the community, that they know that I'm going to be there. They're not going to have to come to me. I'm going to be out there coming to them, and I'm going to be talking to them, and I'm not going to just depend on, I know that we've got a great faculty and staff here and that they're already out there in the community and engaged, but I need to be out there too so that I can understand directly what's happening in these kind of cases. I would also too, I'd want to do a little bit more polling, because this may just be one, sort of sign that we have, that may be indicative of some greater trend or problem. Again, it's time to bring the team together and say, are we running into this in other places? Is this something that we really need to be concerned about? Because our reputation really is at stake.
Very good. Thank you. Please share with us your process for developing a college's operating budget.
I think you always have to start with mission. What have we been asked to do? Now, we come up a lot of times with mission statements that are good, but you also have to say, well, where did this come from? So, is this what the state has actually asked us to do? What's in the legislative language that actually tells us who we are and what we do? Because I can tell you, to kind of skip a little bit further, having engaged with Congress many times throughout my career, the most powerful thing that you can do often in those is say, Senator, Congressman, this is what you told us you wanted us to do. You've asked us to do this, and this is what we need in terms of the resources. And sometimes, and I've been in this position, you've asked us to do this, but you've told us to do it, and you haven't given us the resources to do it. So that match between mission and resources to accomplish the mission has to be there. But it's not just a matter of we made up that we thought it'd be nice if we called this our mission. We have to have this understood and enshrined in the Alabama Community College system. Very clear mission and vision there. Shelton has done a good job, I think, translating things down in terms of mission. And then the vision also is important, because obviously budgets are not just one time in history or in one point in time. They're going to go out. So that vision of enriching, empowering, expanding, and ensuring that Shelton has articulated, how are we going to get there? 12,000 graduates or 12,000 enrollment by 2020? That's ambitious. How are the resources going to go there? So it has to be both what are we doing now and then the future years program that we're dealing with. And it's not to say that we simply operate within the bounds of, okay, well, we know this is our appropriation this year, so that's it, and so this is all we can do. We've got to be ambitious. We've got to think big. We identify the delta between what we are asked to do or what we've been told we should do in the future with Accelerate Alabama, for example, and what we're doing there, and say, okay, we need to make up these resources. Not saying that we're going to get them from the state necessarily, but foundations, capital campaigns that we can do for whatever we need, other places, working with companies, all of those things are going to have to be there. But it has to start with what do we do? And then I think prioritization of activities is also important as you do that. This is what we do, but here's a priority. Not to say that you just start lopping things off, but in terms of investing your resources, it's key to know your priorities. There is nothing strategic about a salami slice, is something that I've always said, and been given many goals like cut by 15% during my career. And if I just kind of cut down, everybody takes 15%. I've always found that even running that exercise, I'm not going to be able to do what I really need to do. I need to have a prioritization and understand where I've got to invest.
And where would those priorities come from?
Well, the priorities have to come from understanding our programs, understanding where we're making a difference, understanding the student-centered, obviously. So we have to look at we're serving the students, we're serving the regions. Now, resources are not just monetary resources. I mean, we have human resources. So how are we using our human resources? And what you find a lot of times is you can shift your human resources, say plus up class size a little bit with permanent faculty, then maybe you don't need quite as many adjunct faculty. It just depends on the situation. And so you need to play both sides of the equation in terms of the resources that you're given. So you may find a way that by doing things differently, I can actually do things within the monetary resources that I have and still accomplish the priority missions that I've got.
Thank you. State Board of Education member Smith telephoned your institution to obtain the educational records of his granddaughter, Emma. Emma is 18 years old and enrolled in the welding program. Smith, who was elected from your district, has generously stepped in to pay the cost of Emma's education. Recently, he has voiced skepticism regarding a multi-million-dollar facility you'd like to construct, but you believe through a series of meetings with him, you now have his support. Emma has signed a non-release agreement, and it's on file at your institution. After a few unsuccessful attempts to persuade the registrar's office to release the records, Smith went directly to the institution's chief instructional officer, who is a distant relative. At the direction of the dean, the documents were released. They contain not only Emma's grade history, but also the details of how a now resolved hazing incident, of which Emma had participated, had resolved last semester. When Emma learned of the release, she made an appointment to see you. 2 questions. What do you see as the major issues in this scenario? And 2, how will you approach the meeting with Emma?
I think the major issue, and all of the other details should not obscure this, is we violated a student's privacy and right to privacy. So I think we failed one of our students, which is, it has to be, to me, the primary issue there. I've got an issue now with the Board of Education member who has pressed and put pressure. That in and of itself, yeah, you know, again, has he violated something? Well, I think he's pressed too hard, and that's something that I would want to try to address with him. I need to be frank with him. I need to thank him for you know what he's doing, and that we really need him. But I need him to understand. I need to talk through this and understand what the problem is here in terms of that. And that's going to be delicate. It may not be pretty, but it's going to be something I have to do. I have to deal with him. I have a dean or the chief instruction officer here who has really done something very wrong. And that cannot be overlooked. I know there was pressure. There may have been a sense, I need to understand why. There may have been a sense of, look, I was really trying to do this because I wanted to help the college. I wanted to try to navigate a middle path of some sort. But he or she needs to understand that that's wrong. And we have to deal with that. We have to deal with that because something has been done that is a serious thing that you can't simply ignore. I owe him an apology for the institution that we failed her, and that there's no excuse for what happened, and that I wish I could take it all back and make it go away, but I can assure her that this will not happen again. And I need to understand what her concerns in particular are about the incident, and whether I can address any of those concerns beyond what I'm doing in terms of both disciplinary within my own staff, as well as dealing with her grandfather to try to keep. I still want the grandfather obviously on board and on it, but they need to understand what has happened here.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. What strategies would you employ to identify and cultivate leadership within the college?
My philosophy is that every person in this college should be a leader. I want everybody to be a leader. And we all have ways in which we can lead, even small ways. And part of that vision I mentioned earlier about empowering people, you have to empower them to lead and give them opportunities to lead. So there's a culture of leadership and a philosophy of leadership that I would want to instill, and to make sure that everyone is understood that, and that this is not going to be a micromanagement sort of thing. I'm expecting people to step out and to lead and to do what they see is right, to take action. Now, part of what I want to infuse and help as I cultivate that is, in the ideal sense, they would always have this little voice that would say, what would Walter want to do in this case? Or, he's talked about his style, his philosophy, the things that are important. I think this is the kind of decision that he would want to make. And obviously we have decisions within our authority, and people need to respect that. But the other thing is, what are the developmental opportunities? We are a learning community, and all of us have to be learning, and we have to take advantage of the developmental opportunities that we have. And I want to promote those developmental opportunities wherever we have the case. And I've seen cases where, or situations where people pull back and say, oh, we're too busy, we're not going to let people go to developmental. And I can tell you, some of my mentors I learned from. I was in a job once where I had a mentor who could have easily have said, I need you to stay another year in this job before you go out and you have this developmental opportunity. And he said, no, you need to go now. I'll find someone else that can do this, but it's your development, you need to go now. That made a profound impression on me, and that's the sort of thing I want to see too. I want to see people constantly having those leadership opportunities, the developmental opportunities, and then creating and sustaining a culture of leadership that every member of Shelton State is a Shelton leader, that we're getting out and doing things, and no matter what they're doing, what their job is, or the kind of people. I've seen it already today, and it's been heartening to see the people who are taking charge and doing great things.
Just a quick follow-up on this, and you've during our conversation this morning, you've talked about your team and referred to your team on many occasions. What will should you become the president here, what will your expectations be for your cabinet or your closest leaders at this school? What would they expect? What should they expect from you?
First thing,
and what would you expect from them?
Yeah.
Too. Okay.
The first thing I expect from them is dialogue. I thrive on dialogue. I think best when I'm talking with people, and we're exchanging ideas and understanding what needs to be done. And there's no way I'm going to be able to lead the institution without talking to people and having frank dialogue about what's going on, and understanding that we're going to have a robust, frank exchange among our leadership. But there may be disagreements. That's common. And that's okay. But that we're also going to be loyal to one another, and that at the point that we make a collective decision about what's best, then we're all going to be loyal to one another and step out with that decision, and be the kind of leaders that we need to be to accomplish this. They're going to understand that I'm a collegial leader, and I expect a collegial style. There's no reason. I have to go back. I had an instructor one time. And this was flying. I was learning to fly F-15s, and it was great, which was kind of hard. He said he used to write on the board. He said, today, it was always on the board with all the other mission elements. Today, we're going to go out. We're going to be safe. We're going to have fun, and we're going to learn something. And then everything else would flow from that. And I loved flying with him because I thought, yeah. And so there's nothing wrong with smiling, with having fun as we're doing our mission of being collegial. We can do that. As long as we're focused on the mission and we're getting it done, I think it's going to enhance things, and that's my style. We're also going to reach out to people. We're going to be out there. We're going to be that hospitality that we're going to have, and that we want to serve. We want to be your trainer. We want to be your educator. We want to partner, and I'm win-win in that sense. I think you can already tell. I'm not a zero-sum kind of thing. We do not have to gain at someone else's expense. We can work with our partners. Gosh, we're lucky to have the University of Alabama here and be able to have this great partner with all of these resources that we can help work with the partners in the community. This is win-win, and we're going to be win-win here within Shelton. And that they also need to know my commitment to them, that I'm going to work for them. And I'm going to see to it that I do everything I can to make sure that they've got the resources and the backing to do their very important job.
Very good. Thank you. Well, in closing, let me offer my congratulations to you for making the finals.
Thank you.
It was a very a very competitive pool, so certainly you should feel very good about that. Thank you for the conversation this morning, and certainly wish you the very best of luck the rest of the day.
Thank you. It's
Great.
my pleasure.
Thank you very much.